Hi there, welcome back. This is Richard Massey, and today we're at the historic Danberg Ranch in northern Nevada, and we're going to be looking at a new camera that I just borrowed from a good friend of mine. It's a 6x17 panoramic, but it's very versatile. It'll do other formats too. And this is one of the things that sets it aside from so many of the other panoramic cameras. It's not terribly heavy. It's as compact as you could get for a 6x17. And it costs about half of what the other cameras are, but this has features that most of the other 6x17 cameras don't have. So let's look a little closer at it, and we'll discuss some of those features. Well, let's just start at the back of the camera, work our way around. This is actually a camera that has an interchangeable back. This back holds the film and just attaches to the camera body. The other side, there's a cone with the lens, of course. But the beautiful thing about this, so easy to change the formats. This just comes undone, lifts this down, and now you'll notice inside, this is set up for a 6x12 format. You adjust the different formats by just sliding out these little masks, if you will. Now it's a 6x17. You have inserts that you can have a 6x14, or in this case, 6x12. And it works really very, very well. And on the top we have a viewfinder, very accurate, and it's kind of fun to just walk around with this and view the scene, preview things. And the mask here is for 6x17, but you can get them for different formats, or you can just make your own little mask there. And one of the other features about this is that this lens rises and also can fall, but in order to get it in the fall position, you have to mount a plate, turn it upside down, and then you can drop it. But we'll discuss that in a moment. But as you can see, it's really easy to interchange the backs. You just look at the notches. These are kind of square, a little larger, the ones on the top. Just set that in place, sets it there, and then just lock these down. Now the thing that well, a few things I love about this camera, but one of them is that you have the interchangeable formats, and the way you can determine the number of frames and all is to look on the back here. If you're shooting 6x17, you use this little window here, and you will advance the film to number 2, take your shot, advance it to number 5, take the shot, advance to number 8, then go to 11. You only have 4 shots there. If you're going to shoot the 6x12 format, you get 6 exposures, 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, and 11. So that's pretty versatile. You can also go to 6x14. So what you do, you just slide this up and you can advance the film and you can see which marker, the counter, appears in which window. So that's really a nice thing to have. Now, this camera costs almost $1,200. That's providing the cone, the camera body, cable release, and a case, but you have to provide your own lens. And the most common lens is the 90mm Nikkor, the SW, and it's extremely sharp lens. We'll take a look at that in a second here. As we continue around, you'll see that the mounting bracket here, the locks here, this will be the film advance, and we'll take the back off and show you how to load that in just a minute. Let's just turn this around and look at the business side here. By the way, these have a dark slide, so when you want to take the picture, you're all ready to go, you just slide this out. And I've got this marked, so there's a diagonal, and you can watch and see when it's cleared the window inside, cleared the frame inside. It's a long, narrow slide, so it's best to mark it. Don't take it out every time. You'll have trouble putting it back in. It takes a little while. But if you have it marked, just pull it out to the right distance, you're good to go. Looking around to the front now, we have, of course, the lens cone here, and these are detachable. You can get different cones for different focal length lenses, and kind of expensive though. I think the cones themselves are about $500. So, and it gets kind of bulky. It's not real small, but it is an option. You'll have that. Now, a lot of people say that by 17 is a pretty radical format, and for me it's a bit long, but there are occasions where you'll want to do that, but it's nice to have the ability to shoot 6 by 12, 6 by 14, and 6 by 17. 6 by 12 is what I'm shooting most of my work with now. And the focusing cone is very precise. You don't need to take off the back and use the ground glass. That's one thing I forgot to mention. This comes with the ground glass, and with the dark slide, of course, you can remove the roll film back, put the ground glass on. I'm going to demonstrate that in a moment. Do your focusing on every frame very precisely, and take your shot. And you can change back and forth. Have every shot could be perfectly framed, or if you don't have to be very precise. I enjoy doing a lot of architectural work and structures and old Victorian houses, so I use that feature all the time because I'm frequently raising this front, and this is another thing that sets this aside from most of the other 6 by 17. They don't have a rising, well, one of them may. This front cone here, this whole front, just loosen this and just raise this all the way up. In fact, most of the time I'll start out in this format. It's up there, it's much easier. I'm looking at the ground glass and just slide it down rather than going up with it. And then of course this locks it in any position very securely. So it's all the way down. And of course we have this beautiful, very functional guard that protects the lens. But I'm a filter junkie. I love using different filters, and what I would like to do is take this front section off. As I said, this isn't my camera, so I'm just borrowing it for a while, trying it out, and I'm really falling in love with it. But I like to use the Lee filter system. It's an outstanding system, but I can't put it on here, these big square filters. So I would take this front off, this piece comes off, and then I'm sure I put my adapter and everything would work fine on there. Now, beautiful wooden handles, very secure grip. Some people actually hand hold this, but very secure. Now looking close up at the top of this camera, we can see the levels. Got the mounting for the viewfinder, and this locking pin locks that in place. And as I mentioned, there's a special plate you can put in here so you can mount this upside down, and then of course you have the ability to have a falling front instead of just a rising front. Another great feature that I love about this, the cone is very accurate as far as the distance scales on here, and what I use frequently is the depth of field using hyperfocal distance. Occasionally just you can set your prime distance. I'll show you a little trick here. Now I'd like to have you take a look at the focusing cone here, and the scale is just very precise. And one thing I see a lot of people doing is just focusing on the main subject and taking the picture, not considering properly using their depth of field, because you could be losing a lot of good information. Let's say, like right now, we're focused at 10 feet. We're going to be shooting at f/16. f/16, this is a depth of field scale. So what this means is that we can check our distance here and see that infinity here hasn't even gone to 16, and our closest thing that's going to be in focus is between 4 and 5 feet here. So what I like to do, I'll focus if my main subject's at 10 feet. I'm going to shoot at f/16. I'll just rotate that 10 feet over until it is just before the f/16. f/16 is what I'm going to be using. Focus at 10 feet. I just shifted that over, and now look what happens to my foreground. Now what's in focus? Inside 3 feet. So play around with that experiment, and what's fun, you can actually use the ground glass and see how that works. Okay, now we're going to take a look at the ground glass and how we can precisely focus and compose with this beautiful camera. Just going to loosen these, making sure, of course, we have the dark slide in. And as I mentioned, have a photo vest with 2 big pockets if you're going to do view camera work or work with this particular camera, so you can have your ground glass in one pocket and a place to put your roll back. So this is the ground glass, and it goes on just like the roll film back. Smaller notches here, a little bigger notches up top. Fits right in there. Lock it down, and when you have your lens open, you can see very clearly through here. And one of the nice features about this, it has a built-in shade, which can be very handy and really helps with the focusing. So makes it darker. Use your focusing aid and you can focus really very precisely. Get your composition, decide if you want to raise up the front, get the top of the building, and then you're set to go, except then you're going to have to just take the back off, the ground glass, put that in the pocket of your photo vest, and put your roll film back on here. It's actually pretty darn easy, as you can see. Now, pretend we have it all loaded, cranked it to the beginning, and we're ready to go. So you take a shot deciding what format you're already doing. You have your 6x17, or you have your guides blocking it to do a different format. And you have to be careful. Watch this. If you're doing a 6x12, you're going to watch that window there and stop when it gets to number 1. I'm going to do a little separate video on how to load this, because they actually make this back where you can use it on a view camera too. So that's kind of cool. But very interesting roll film holder on there. So that about covers it. And again, I'd highly recommend this. It's probably the most versatile one you'll find, and it's half the price of most of the other ones. In fact, I don't think you can get those new. You have to check me on that. But most of the panoramic cameras are big, bulky, very expensive, and very used, because they are, well, classics in a sense. And we're going to be taking some pictures with this, and we'll add this on to the end of the video. So thanks again for joining us, and have a great day.